Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to seal the closed session minutes of January 8, 2025. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
There were no votes taken in closed session. Would you please join me in standing for a moment of silence and the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, we welcome Vernon Heights Elementary School and ask Mr. DeRosier to come to the mic and introduce the presenters, and looking forward to your program.
Thank you for having us tonight. If there's a way that you guys could come down, directors as well, just come into this area
Sure.
and see if you can evenly disperse yourself with our kids.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for including them. Yeah.
Oh. I think the directors went and joined in.
So tonight's presentation is going to be why resources are an important component of the model of instruction. I got to start off by just saying how proud I am of, every year I come up here, I tell you how proud I am of Vernon Heights Elementary School. And every single year I come here, we seem to keep growing and getting better as we go. So I'm very, very proud of the kids that we've chosen to come here tonight. Thank you for all coming, guys, and thank you for the parents for being here with us. So I appreciate that a lot. The staff has been working really hard this year, working with the innovation specialists to prepare our kids for the future, and they're going to be able to showcase some of their learning tonight. Mrs. Paley is here with Jenna Brian. They are our teachers, and I am so proud of these two people. Ashley last year was recognized by the IE, Instructional Empowerment down in Florida, and by Michael Toth, who's the founder of that. So I'm really proud of Ashley. So Ashley has taken this on and just has moving at a pace that is faster than anybody else in my building. She is my rock star. I go to her when there is a need. I needed something. I called Heather Neal last week because I got Kim Blaze that called me. She says, don't forget, Rob, it's your week. I'm like, no, we're coming off a vacation. I'm not prepared. So Heather and Ashley really pulled this all together for us. So thank you guys, Heather. And we also have Adrienne Bland with us. She's from IE. She's up from Atlanta, and she was in my building today, so I invited her over to have this experience as well. So she was very excited to be here. So thank you for being here. I'm ready.
You're ready? So as we get ready to get started, if any of the other people here would like to join in the group, feel free to listen as well. So as you may have heard before, our destination here in Woonsocket is towards student-led classrooms. That is what we are aiming for. So our model of instruction that we focus our teaching and learning around, as you can see, is student-centered. It's always about what are students doing. That's why students is bolded and underlined in each of those levers. So one of the things that is key to the model of instruction is students, if they're going to lead their own learning, need access to resources. And it's not just about having the resources in the room, but the teachers really need to teach students how to utilize these resources. So because we believe in student-led learning, we have students here today so that they can tell you about how they use these resources in their classroom. So, they've prepared, they do have note cards in front of them, but they, I'm sure you'll notice their own thoughts that they take the time to prepare. And we hope you, enjoy interacting with them. Anything else, Ms. Bailey? They're very excited to share with you what these resources are. And I'd like to point out too that it's a social term discussion. So these are resources that help them with discussions and having conversations.
I just can't do that tonight. The one that Alan and Kyle's with, the little boy.
Mhm.
Really into it. And language and everything. Cute.
That's what Alan's background as a cop really shows when he's interacting with someone like that. That's what I see. It's one thing about cops, they can talk to anybody.
How about that?
These are on.
Sorry about the heat. I was walking with you on Pat, and you were no, it's off. They're not doing it. I didn't know it was back on because I could have called next gen because they were working at the high school, and they would have sent them over to look at it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm all
Yeah.
tucked in.
that helmet's insulated. And you could have stayed warm.
Thank you. I also could have stayed warm if I used a shovel to bury some bodies or people that were in there with me.
I think you got here too late. Oh well. Brad told me he did clarify the trash thing. Summer trash. Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not normal. No, that's fair.
I'm still raising it.
Almost.
Should we talk about city support? It's bullshit.
You say whatever you
Should
want.
be.
Sorry.
Good.
I also want to let you know we have resources back here for you to so any of the things that we taught tonight, as well as the previous free question add-on cards are
I am like so cold.
Good now. I was cold.
I'm freezing.
Good now.
I'm freezing too.
I'm
Cool. I'm always cold.
Well, just sitting over there, it
It's not
felt like
gonna
the
help.
cold air came on.
I'm just cold.
I was cold, and over there I got nice. I'm toasty
Well, I was
now.
sitting over there and it felt like the cold air was freaking blowing
But it
up.
wasn't as cold as going to
Well,
ride.
everybody
the
speak
other night.
fast and we can be home.
Wow, was the window open?
I'm a Chicago Med.
Chicago Med starting now, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Already? It's 8 o'clock already?
No.
Mr. DeRosa, fantastic presentation. Maddie, you did a great job. Good job, everyone. I'm going to try not to be a rock anymore, be more a sponge. Thanks for everything. That was wonderful. Next, we'll go into good and welfare. For anyone addressing the school committee during good and welfare, please begin with your name and address. Your comments shall be no more than 5 minutes of speaking time and should be in good decorum. Please be aware that the committee cannot respond to you during good and welfare, but may direct you to an appropriate member of the administration team, or may meet with you directly after the meeting for further discussion. Is there anyone who would like to address the school committee this evening?
Good evening, everybody. Michelle Stabor, 139 Ray Avenue. I wanted to publicly comment on how our city came together on January 6th to address the issue that we have with our funding here for our school department. I really appreciate, what I appreciated the most, that each of you had something to say that was really well thought out, and it was individual. And I guess when we think about activated brains, we saw that here with our elected officials. Again, I want to say thank you, because sometimes we get very frustrated when we're trying to move things along and we're struggling with things and we don't seem to be making a difference. And I loved seeing our school committee, our city council, and our state representatives and senator come and speak and come together. I would just like to say, though, let's not stop. We still have a lot of work to do. Let's keep collaborating. Let's keep talking, because as we just saw, we're getting some good results and we're moving in the right direction, and we can't stop. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the school committee this evening? Seeing none, we'll go into recognitions and announcements.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
see-
Chairman. I do not have any this evening. I would, however, like to, Mrs. Neal is still here. So I just want to recognize the Vernon Heights students who are here this evening and their teacher, Mrs. Paley, for the impressive demonstration on their academic discourse and the model of instruction, and how the model of instruction is being implemented impressively in Mrs. Paley's classroom. The model of instruction is how we teach in the Woonsocket Education Department. We are making a lot of progress. There's a lot more progress still to make, but I just want everyone to know that we are working hard, and we truly understand the why here in Woonsocket and why we do what we do. It clearly is for our children. So thank you to Vernon and to the students and to the staff.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Next, the approval of minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the December 18, 2024 closed meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke and Mrs. Costa. Any changes to those minutes? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to approve the December 18, 2024 open meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Any corrections, deletions? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Does anyone want to take any item out of the consent agenda for discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to discuss purchases separately, please.
Mrs. Kepiscus, please.
Mr. Perea. I'm looking at the purchases. The list is short, so maybe that's why it jumped out to me. We have an item here, City of Woonsocket Public Works, Facilities, District Refuse, almost $8,000 for trash collection. We have to pay the city for trash collection for a city school?
Yes, that's correct, Ms. Kepiscus. You are reading that correctly. Since COVID hit, the Woonsocket Education Department has ramped up their summer programming. So we have been running the programming at all our buildings, and this is a deviation from the norm. So because the additional cost for trash collection, that has been passed on to the Woonsocket Education Department during these COVID years.
Is that the only municipal, one would think municipal expense that's the school department is using we're paying for, that we would think that the city's paying for?
Well, we pay for our sewer at all the buildings. We pay for the water at all the buildings. We pay for gas and diesel from the city of Woonsocket. And we also pay for the SROs to the tune of about $500,000 a year.
So we're using education funds that we could be using for staff and educational materials back to the city.
Correct.
Thank you.
Since we got, the SROs is the biggest, probably the biggest number in the bunch, or one of the larger numbers. That's something we had agreed some years ago to bring them on and to put them on our budget, as I recall.
That is correct. As you may recall, the city did get a grant for SRO officers. We utilized that grant in the early years of the SROs, and when the money ran out, all of that expense came over to the school department.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Costa?
I just have a question. So we don't get help from the city, and now we got to pay all of this towards the city. Is there any way that maybe we could ask them to take care of some of these expenses? Seeing as how they don't help us?
So as Mr. Perrier said about the trash collection, that is an aberration in terms of how it's worked. Traditionally, the city, my understanding, has always done the trash collection. That was a change that the Budget Commission made quite some time ago. It was because of the fact that we did the enhanced summer programming and all the federal funding that came in that was supposed to cover the expenses related to it. The city did not budget for the trash collection. The city is well aware that the summer program this past summer is the last of the summer programming. And moving forward, I've talked to Liz Carrigan who took over from Mike DeBrois in that department, that moving forward, there won't be a summer trash collection bill because that's not what's normally occurred. In terms of all of the utilities, I don't want to speak for Mr. Perrier, but in my prior district, when I oversaw facilities, it was the same thing. We still paid utilities for the buildings. And the SROs in Tiverton, I believe we originally, we paid the cost of for their time during the 180-day school day in Tiverton. And then the remainder of the time, the town of Tiverton picked it up. And I discovered more recently, just because I'm still acquainted with individuals that work there, that the school department budget, they did not get the funding they requested from the town, and the town ended up picking up the cost of the SRO. So the town still provides the SRO, but my understanding is it's without an expense to the school department because of the tight budget down there.
Okay.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely, Mrs. Kepiscus.
It's on the issue of the SROs. I remember the grant funding, and I remember you discussing with us that at some point in time, this is going to get shifted to us if we want to keep SROs in the schools. I just have one other question. Do the SROs ever get pulled out of the schools if there's something going on in the city and they're needed? And if so, do we get credit for that time? If they're doing city business on school time, is the city paying?
May I interject? I'd be willing to bet that if there's an emergency in the city, they're gonna get pulled off. Whether we get reimbursed, I don't know if that ever would happen, but they're gonna get pulled off because public safety in the city is probably first. If there's a big emergency in the city, they're going to get pulled off. My stance on this is they're valuable, but I'd much rather lose them than teachers. Just
Absolutely.
putting that out there.
So if I may, Mr. Leclerc, Mr. Leclerc is correct. If there's an emergency, they do get pulled off. As recently, there was an event over, right before Christmas where there was an individual with a weapon in a neighborhood, and one of our SROs was actually in the newspaper apprehending the individual. So that does occur. We work very closely, I would say, with the police department, Detective Sergeant Kamer, Captain Remick, Chief Oates, in terms of making sure that if an SRO is out, I mean, there are people like us, if they get sick or they take vacation time, we do work with the police department to make sure that they cycle through. It's a patrol officer, will be on grounds, circling through the outsides of the buildings, going through. So there are times where they do get pulled away, but I think that our police department does a pretty good job of making sure that they provide the coverage. I'm not going to sit here and mislead the committee and say, do we have 4 every day all the time? That is not the case. But there are other times where the school committee, for example, may request, can we have a police officer present? And there are times where they can't get an SRO to do it and we pay a detail. And there are times where the SRO comes here. And there are times when the SRO, when we have some of our wonderful events for families on Saturdays, where the SROs come on a Saturday and they cover the event. So there's a lot of exchange. It's not maybe as formal as you may have expected. But I would say it's fair to say that they make their best effort. They too are short. We're short teachers. We can't hire teachers. We can't hire paras. We can't hire many different individuals and roles here in the district. And the police department suffers with the same thing, where they're short on staff. I was with Detective Kamer today, and my understanding is they had a couple of vacancies in the juvenile bureau they've been waiting to fill. So they're in the same predicament. But I would say the police department here puts a good faith effort into trying to make sure that we're covered and for the purposes that we discussed years ago when we got the COPS grant.
I'm not saying it's the police department. I don't have issue with the police department. I want to make that clear. My issue is the way that this arrangement is done. It just seems illogical to me that city schools that are run on state money are paying city funds. It just seems strange to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of our funding comes from the state, not from the
If I may add one more thing, just so the committee's aware, just based on, this is the 5th or 6th district I worked in. Normally, school districts pay for their own trash collection. We're the only district I've ever worked for where the city, aside from this summer purchase, we're the only district I've ever worked for where we're not responsible for the trash collection. Most districts, so when I was in Tiverton, I had to contract, I had to get 5 dumpsters. And I had to pay whatever it was per month. There was an annual cost to have dumpsters, to have trash collection at the town schools in the town of Tiverton. So that's actually unique to us. And I know you were trying to inquire us about the support on that.
When we were looking for SROs way back when, what we were going to do, I remember looking at financial statements and general ledger, general funds from other districts, and they had their SROs on their books. Some had grants, some did not. And it's basically run out of school. And frankly, I understand that, yeah, we'd like to preserve schools, but I mean, I feel better that at least we have the presence of police on our campuses, although I wish we had more, but we can't afford more. I'm just happy for the ones we have. And I would imagine that since we don't have emergencies every single day throughout the city, that they're here most of the time. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, Chairman, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc?
Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic thing that we have. It's wonderful. I think it's a great idea to have them here.
Yeah.
Just at some point, we know where we stand with the state. I mean, we could have issues. That might be something that has to be taken care of. But I think they're a valuable tool. We should have them all the time, as long as we can.
I think it's understood what I think everyone's saying. It's the
I'm
money.
saying
So, yep, I understand, but yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So you said that in the city that you worked in before, the other district you worked in before, their town paid for the SROs, correct?
In the town of Tiverton, the agreement between the town and the schools when I was employed there is the SRO would be funded by the schools 180 days of their work year, and the balance of their work year was funded by the town, with the understanding that the SRO worked just within the schools, and during the summer, they didn't do any type of student programming. I would like to clarify, just if I may, because I'm not sure what direction you're going in, Ms. Costa, but our SROs during the summer have been engaged in summer programs. They do run summer programs here. We've kept a very
Right.
detailed log. They provide training, ALICE training. For example, this summer, we're going to do an ALICE training on site. We're fortunate they're going to host it here and do that. So there are different programs that they do here. It's a little different structure in Tiverton than Tiverton
Okay.
was.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Anyone else? Any further questions? Dr. McGee?
Could I?
Yeah, please.
I would agree with, I think everybody agrees that our resource officers are invaluable, and especially the resource officers we have here in our schools. As Mr. Notariani just said, they not only are they working here, during the course of the 180 days when the students are in session, but they're also working in the summers, and they're supporting us, and they're partnering with us for activities that happen over the course of the summer, as well as preparing for the start of the school year. So I just want to, just say that we're very fortunate to have our SROs. And, as Mr. Notariani was just speaking about, we met with, he meets with them regularly, and I happened to be there with them this morning. And we are really fortunate to have the SROs that we have, here in our city schools.
Agreed.
Dr. McGee, roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, we'll go into superintendent's report. Dr. McGee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have the personnel report. We have 3 full-time positions that we've added. Recently, we have a school social worker at Coleman Elementary School. We have a music teacher at Harris and Coleman, and we have a school nurse teacher at Globe. So the vacancies we have to date, we have 25 paraprofessional positions. Again, that's been an issue. It's been a concern. We have open para positions, but the reality is that we don't have applicants, and it isn't like we have an abundance of applicants and we're just not, we're being very picky and choosy. We're not. They're not out there. And I know that our human resources department has been working hard to try to come up with ways to try to either recruit folks to come in, or just other means of trying to increase the number of paraprofessionals we have across the district. We have 2 custodial positions that are currently vacant, and we have 6 teaching positions, which it was down to 5, but we just recently lost a school nurse, so who resigned. So we currently have 6 open positions across the district. And again, we're working, as I say this to you every time we come together, we're working hard to try to, get that number down as low as possible to 0. But, those are the numbers, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions anyone may
Any
have at
comments?
this time.
Questions? Then I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the superintendent's report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Notoriani, would you give us your technology and facilities update?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as of today, we have 96 overall technology work orders in the system. Presently, there are 90 for the technology infrastructure, repairing hardware, the internet, laptops, printers, and such. And there are 6 for the data systems. And it's worth noting, we've crept up on the technology work orders because we're also presently rolling out, bless you, the MacBooks to our staff. So that, I think, is impacting our response time a little bit, if you will. As I just said, the MacBook distribution is underway. We currently have been in Villanova Middle School. On Friday, we'll start at Hamlet Middle School, and then we will have the high school and the Career Tech Center. Once those schools are complete, we will then circle back and catch all the schools where the teachers may have been out for whatever reason, due to illness, or maybe they're a new hire or whatnot, and we'll catch up with the rest of the staff later this month. And then all the MacBooks will be out, and all of the new cybersecurity protocols on the devices will be deployed across the district, which is something we've been working towards for the last several months. Our data staff have completed or finalized the state reporting for graduation, retention, and dropout rate for both the district and the high school. We are waiting for RIDE to release the results. That's not out yet, but the data has been uploaded. And we've moved on to the civil rights data collection, and we're then going to move towards the March 1st snapshot report. Civil rights data collection collects information on our enrollment, collects information on restraint data, it collects various or a plethora of data that all goes up to the state and gets published on their website and to the federal government. The March 1st snapshot report, as the committee is aware, is the snapshot report that impacts our funding formula. So that data has to be correct, and it's an intensive effort to make sure all of the buildings have entered their data correctly so that what we send to RIDE reflects an accurate picture, has no errors, so we maximize our funding. And as we're talking about funding all evening, this is a key data point. If the buildings don't get the data right and we upload incorrect data, that could affect where you're at with your funding, which is an issue we had maybe about a decade ago, which we think we've corrected based on the processes we put in place. And then finally, we are working on the data, that basically the student enrollment and student scheduling, because that data in the system, making sure students have accurate schedules and they're properly enrolled in the district, translates over to RIDE, and that's what populates our RICAS rosters for when we do state assessment data later this school year. So that needs to be accurate so that my colleagues can administer the testing appropriately. Later this month, we will start the conversion from Skyway to Power School. That's something the committee approved in December. And then student registration, we will be opening the 25-26 school registration window on March 3rd. Applications will be available both in paper and electronic format. And additionally, we'll be scheduling or hosting a kindergarten registration event in May, which is our annual event here at Hamlet Middle School. We have a whole fun day planned for parents to come out and register their kindergartners. A final date will be announced in the near future. Facilities custodial services, as of today, we have 133 work orders in the system. There are 69 work orders that are assigned to our internal staff. The balance, or 64 of them, are assigned to outside contractors and vendors that could represent anything from plumbing to HVAC to roof repairs. Other than that, our staff have done an excellent job of getting their work orders down. You may recall, I've talked in the past, they were up in close to 400 due to COVID, and they've reduced that backlog to 64. So they've done an excellent job.
Good job.
So we also will be scheduling a facilities and safety subcommittee meeting before January 17th, as I promised the committee in December. I'm just looking to get some of the members together to have that meeting, to have some discussions that are needed. In terms of transportation, we continue to meet weekly with Durham School Services staff. Durham has experienced a significant absences. I think it has to do with some of the cold and flu and RSV and everything going around, but they had 5 drivers out on Monday, which was a severe impact to our operations, Durham did notify our schools, and our school principals in turn should have been sending out messages to our parents and guardians and families to let them know that the buses are running late. At our last meeting, we were informed, so last Thursday when we met, we were informed that they had drivers coming up the onboarding pipeline, if you will, and they had some drivers coming back that were on leave. And I believe they indicated that by mid-January, they'd be one short, and by the end of January, they'd be fully staffed. I will wait and see. That's the best way I can describe that.
Don't hold your breath.
I've heard this multiple times from them over the years.
Positive.
And then in some positive news, we did reach out to RIDE, Statewide Transportation. Dr. Carreño from RIDE has been talking with myself and Dr. McGee and Mr. Perrier, and they contacted this week to tell us that they could possibly offer us up to 3 buses with drivers assigned
Okay, awesome.
to supplement our transportation for the remainder of the school year. They have not forwarded over the daily rate. My understanding is the daily rate will be under the rate that First Student charges, but they couldn't tell me exactly what it is right now. Durham has been made aware of the fact that we're seeking help from the state. So there's some paperwork, there's probably some communication between Durham and the district that needs to occur. But based on the committee's actions at the last meeting, we are pursuing this as a hopefully a solution to mitigate. It won't solve all of our problems, but hopefully
Of
help
course.
out the transportation debacle that we have here with Durham. And last item is SRO school safety. As we've discussed at the subcommittee level, the traffic flow at the high school career tech center changed starting January 2nd. And I would like to thank the police department. Not only did all 4 of our SROs show up, but Chief Oates, Captain Picard, Captain Remick, they all sent over the traffic division to help redirect traffic. So just as I could say it publicly on the radio, there is no parent pickup or drop-off in front of the high school on Cass Avenue. Parent pickup and drop-off occurs over at the Career Tech Center. You pull into the student parking lot. Only buses can drop off in front of the high school, and we did change the traffic flow. We changed the direction where the one-way used to go, come up Cass Avenue, going through the front entrance of the high school. That's now a do not enter. You have to go down Ricard Street and enter and exit in front of the high school. And we've already seen a significant improvement in bus times. The buses are departing in the morning at a much faster rate, and in the afternoons, rather than departing the parking lot at 2:30, 2:35, they're now leaving at 2:22.
Wow.
Good.
Which is shaving off 10 to 15 minutes. Unfortunately, because they're so short of drivers and they're doubling up, we're not seeing any benefit to the change we've made there at the third and fourth tier because, well, they don't have enough buses. But I'm hoping when we get enough buses, this will be an improvement. And then comes February or March, we're going to change the traffic flow at the Pothier Citizens Campus to alleviate the traffic concerns on Robinson Street. And then
Granted,
beyond
there's
that,
enough buses.
I'm sorry?
I said, granted, there's enough buses for that.
Yes, well, even if we don't have enough buses, we're going to have them come in, I believe, St. Leon and loop around and come out onto Robinson Street.
Okay.
And then Alice training is ongoing throughout this year. We're doing the refresher training.
Okay.
Mr. Antoriani, you mentioned that maybe we'll get some help from the state for the buses.
It's not free help. I want to make sure that's clear.
Okay. Whoever's giving us the help, is that going to allow us to have a complement of 19 buses like you wanted early on? Will we?
I'm hoping it exceeds that.
Okay.
Because that would be even better. Because even if we get to even if we get to where we should be at, we still know there's some challenges in the city. So I'm hoping those 3. I'm hoping. Mr. Perry is not hoping this, but I'm hoping that we get to the full complement of Durham buses and the 3 buses from the state. But I have a different viewpoint on this, and yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, I have a different viewpoint on that as well. I'd like to see how these 3 buses work, and quite frankly, Durham's track record, I don't think they could come up with 3 more buses before the end of the year anyway. So we'll see how this works out. When the information is passed along, I can do a quick fiscal impact. Probably 3 buses in total. I think we're looking at probably about $150,000 to get through the end of the year in June, assuming a February 1st start date.
Right.
But when we get the info, I can definitely take a look at it and I can present something to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Mr.
Vice Chair
Chairman.
Burke.
Mr. Dolorani,
Yes, Mr. Burke.
do you have what are your expectations for this conversion from Skyward to Power School? Do you anticipate any hiccups, or what are some things that we have to be concerned about as we make the conversion?
So, Mr. Burke, I would say that I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say there'll probably be some hiccups as we convert. I've done one conversion in Tiverton, my prior district. I think in the long game, it's going to be beneficial because I think we'll have a baseline and a system that we've configured, all of us that are presently here, and have better control over. And when I say that, Skyward, my understanding when Skyward was converted, it was under my predecessor and under a previous data manager,
in my understanding, it was converted, and I'm going to just say I don't think it was done properly, and I think we're seeing ramifications to that to this day. I know when I applied for the job here, I reached out to RIDE to see what the data was like here in Woonsocket, coming from Tiverton, and I had quite a few stories that were shared with me as to what was coming out in Skyward, and I think we've done a lot of work to correct that. So I think there's going to be some hiccups. I think we're going to have a good team. All my colleagues all have modules, so we're fortunate that this is going to be a very comprehensive platform that serves the needs of all my colleagues across both tables. It's just Mr. Quadros over there. We could have put you over here, I think, Kyle. I apologize.
He's solo
so-
over there.
So but I think it's going to serve the needs of everyone here. But I would preface it by saying that all data is only as good as the people and the data that's put into the system. So and I'm going to be very direct about this, there are data entry concerns, there is policy procedure concerns, and making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do with the system and all of that. And I'm hoping to design it in a way, some people might think it's constrictive or that it's maybe being overly controlling, but heavy-handed, but the data, as you know, well, that produces your funding from the state. So I take it very seriously, and I am very controlling about the data, but I think it's going to be a positive thing, Mr. Burke.
Now Skyward and Power School, they both deal with absences, correct?
Yes, sir.
In the system?
Yes, sir.
So you don't want any hiccups when you find out whether kids are present or absent and phone calls are made to parents. I mean, that's serious, right? To make sure that works.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm less absent phone calls about attendance.
Yes.
Most often happen because of human error where they haven't logged the attendance correctly here in our district, or that the students have been tardy and the attendance was lagging and then the entry, then it is that the system has made a mistake.
No, I'm not saying.
But I'm saying that, so that happens now, that will continue to happen, but I don't think it'll be a result of the system per se.
I was just saying in terms of the conversion.
Yes.
You don't want that to be one of the hiccups.
That I don't believe. When I say one of the hiccups, I think we're going to run into hiccups more along the lines of when we're taking the data out of Skyward and putting it into Power School, we're going to find aberrations and errors with the data that's coming out of Skyward. I think once we get it into Power School, it's going to be presentable in such a fashion that's easier to read. Skyward is not an easy system to use. I've used about a half dozen systems in my career, and I would say Skyward is not user-friendly. It's very convoluted. It's very based on old technology. Power School is what's called a graphical user interface. It's very graphic-oriented, it's very visual-based, and it's much more intuitive.
Have you trained the users at this point? Or is that something that's going to happen? Because obviously, I don't care if it's an easy system, the users have to be trained, or you're going to have that human error that's going to carry right into your new system. Because the system is the people. The software just happens to be the tool.
So we're just launching the kickoff to it this month.
Okay.
Coincidentally, I found out who our client success manager, that's the person who's going to guide us.
Yep.
I just received their name earlier this morning.
Mhm.
So we'll be setting up meetings with the admin team to what our next steps are. Each director will have a core area that they focus on. MLL director will work on the MLL module, special ed director will work on that. And then myself and Dr. Holt probably work on the main reporting pieces. But every director has a piece to it, and we will be doing the configuration. We'll be including the guidance chair at the high school, because the high school scheduling is a very big piece of the whole process. And then, yes, we'll be providing enough training. Training is
Right,
built into
okay.
the proposal.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I got my questions now. Relative to Durham, what did they have any thoughts on the new pattern? Did they think it was better? You can't use that as an excuse now?
They were happy.
All right.
They were very happy that we changed it. This is something that they wanted to do. I'll remind the committee, we did this once already.
Yes.
I did this under the prior administration, and I'm not sure what happened. So all I can say is we've done it again, and it seems to be working. Like I said, we are monitoring the times, and we will continue to have the SROs and the traffic division for the foreseeable probably into next week. You'll see officers on Cass Avenue making sure people don't drop off their kids.
All right. Relative to Skyward, you're doing in the middle of a school year? No?
So we're starting now
Okay.
with the intention of doing all of the work between now and July so that we can open the next current school year, the 25-26 school year, using the Power School platform.
All right, cool.
I don't like to do conversions in the middle of the school.
Well, that sounded like it was in the middle of the school year. It's kind of odd, but
Are you going to run the data parallel between the two systems? So that you know, you got to make sure that the new is working
so-
with the old. So parallel operations usually are a requirement.
So we do have that opportunity, and it'll probably will through the summer at least, but part of the data validation process is that you take the data out of Skyward, you present it into Power School, and you go through these data validation periods where you have teams of people. So that's where, for example, the high school staff will come in. We'll have some elementary staff and some middle school staff, and they will go in and they will look at data. They'll look at it in Skyward, they'll look at it Power School, and they have to sign off, yes, it's accurate. We need to be very clear and we very precise as to who we pick because they have to be very data-focused individuals in the district and making sure that it's accurate. But yes, we'll have some parallel time.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file a technology facilities update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Leclerc, Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we go on unfinished business. We were going to discuss and approve, the item in front of us is discussion approval of the amendments to the school building committee membership. The current membership, the committee always included 2 members of the city council. However, both members are no longer city council members. And RIDE requires that on our building committee that we have representation from the city council. I know the president of the city council was reached, and we're waiting for his recommendation before we present the new draft. So I'll make a motion to have this particular item remain tabled until the next meeting.
Second.
Mrs. Costa, is this a second? Any discussion on the table? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
yes.
Now we'll go to new business. The first item is a discussion update on the RISE Mayoral Preparatory Academy Major Charter Amendment. Mrs. Kepiscus, would you give us an update?
I'd be happy to do that. As it's been alluded to, we have the RIDE Council for Elementary and Secondary Education with regard to RISE's application for what they're calling a major amendment to their charter, where they're seeking to convert from a mayoral academy to an independent charter school. Dr. McGee, Mr. Bourget, Mr. Burke, Mr. Leclerc, and I were there, as were Representative Bob Phillips, State Senator Melissa Murray, newly elected State Senator Brian Thompson, Representative John Brian. The representative from the union was Rob Stewart. I can't think of who else was there. Did I miss
Did you
him?
say Dr. McGee?
Did I say Dr. McGee? If I didn't, Dr. McGee
We'll
was
say it
there.
twice.
That's okay.
And we all spoke about it. I just wanted to update everyone with regard to that essentially the council tabled RISE Mayoral Prep's application for further consideration. I do not know when the next meeting is scheduled. They only give you 48 hours lead time on the Secretary of State's websites. We all keep a close eye on it because I think we need to be present at the next one as well because of the fiscal impact in particular that it will have on the district. So this was intended just to give you an update as to what happened at the council meeting on Monday, the 6th. And as soon as we have another date, if it's before our next hearing, our next meeting, I will put that on the agenda so that everyone will know when the next hearing will be. And I believe we all intend to be there again. Thank you.
The only thing I'll add to that is all the individuals that Mrs. Kepiscus noted that were present at that meeting whether live or on Zoom, all were against the conversion from a mayoral academy to the independent charter school. It was unanimous by all of us. Anyone else? Then we'll go to our next item. Thank you very much, Mrs. Kepiscus. Right on. Next, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the parent guardian third-party observation policy for first passage. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Do I turn it to you, Mrs. Kepiscus?
It always defers to me, Mr. Burke.
I do too. So there you go.
You may remember long ago when I gave my policy minutes at our last meeting. This was a policy that we've been bandying about for a couple of meetings in policy. It arose out of a request from a parent who wanted to see a placement for her son before her son was put in that placement. As a result, council developed an agreement with this parent with regard to how that observation would occur in order to respect everyone's rights, in particular the rights of all the students in the classroom to FERPA. And in particular, we wanted to make sure that the parent, guardian, or third party who is observing the placement or observing the classroom would respect the classroom and not talk to the child, talk to the teacher, talk to any other students in the classroom. That parent ended up not utilizing the agreement, declined to sign, but that was the jumping off point for this policy, which we really needed to have in place to address issues, because I think particularly in the area of special education, I personally can tell you that there's a lot of times this issue comes up where a parent wants to see a special education placement before their child is put in it. So as a result, we developed this policy. We had a long discussion at the first meeting about it. At the second meeting, it more or less we hit the points that we wanted to see change. Those changes were made by council, and it was voted on to come forward to the school committee for its approval, and that's where we are tonight.
And as I read the policy, it felt that if a parent goes into a classroom to observe their child, it could be very disruptive. It's almost an invitation to disruption. I don't know how the subcommittee felt about that, because I know you've identified that there could be disruption. If there is, the parent or guardian will be asked to leave, but it seems like we're setting the stage for that.
We are giving the administrators, though, in that policy significant discretion that if they're seeing that disruption occur, or if they're concerned that disruption could occur. We had concerns about certain parents and their ability to control themselves. So the administrator has broad authority to say this is not happening, or this is not happening today, or this is not happening at all. The right, and I say that in loose quotes, to an observation arises out of Title I. Ms. DeRiza was very clear as our Title I coordinator that our compact doesn't include that language. It includes family involvement, but it doesn't necessarily include the observation. But the bottom line is this is going to keep coming up. Council believes that under the regulations that there is a right for a parent to be able to observe, provided these protections are put in place. Parents cannot take pictures, audio tape, videotape, any of that. All of that would violate FERPA. And we're also going to require them to sign whatever documentation that we're going to require of them, an agreement that they're going to comply with all of that. And if they violate all of that and post a video on social media, which we've all seen happen with parents in the district,
right,
they're going to be required to indemnify the city for any damages we may face as a result of the release of that student information. We built as many protections into it as we can. We built in as many administrators' authority, as much administrators' authority as we possibly can for an administrator to say, no, this is over. It has a limitation on the amount of time to begin with. It's very limited as to the amount of participation. I think particularly in the area of special education, there's no question the presence of a third person in the class, an additional person in the classroom, could be and likely would be disruptive. And the parent will be informed that if you are creating any disruption, just by your mere presence,
right,
you will be escorted from the room. I think what we need to do going forward, and I don't know whether that's been considered with regard to the new school, is set up those classrooms so that there is a way to observe without a parent in the classroom.
That'd be the ideal.
That's the ideal. And that was always informally done at both here through the exterior windows, which is inappropriate, But that's how it
kinda
was,
funny.
that's how it was usually handled, by a parent basically
It's
stalking
peak.
outside the preschool classrooms. Sometimes that's turned ugly, to be
Right.
honest with you. There's been some arrests. But I think that's really the only way you could really address that a parent would be able to observe, but no disruption to the classroom.
Do we know, does the subcommittee know of any other district that's doing this? Are they all doing this?
There are many other districts.
Many are doing this?
Council indicated that most districts do have a policy.
And how are they doing with that policy, since you're nodding yes?
This tracks what most other schools do. Some a limited number, some clear boundaries and rules on parent conduct while they're at the meeting, graduation. This is sort of like an amalgamation of what we saw other districts.
No, I understand they're doing it, but how is the execution of the policy? Have they had problems where they've had to ask guardians and parents to leave because of disruption? How is that working?
That's a very good question. We use the policy, but we just take the step of contacting them to find out how they're being practiced. I don't know that personally.
Mm-hmm.
whether they've had
Because to me, that'd be interesting to see if we're kicking them. All of a sudden, we're kicking half the people or a tenth of the people, who knows?
But I think the bottom line is we can only do it the way we can do it based on how our
Oh.
buildings are set up. It may be if other classrooms have the ability. I know, for example, when my son was going through child outreach, there was a window through which you could observe, much like as I referred to it. It's like watching your child in ballet class. You're watching through a one-way mirror so that your child can't see you and cry that they don't want to be in ballet class. Child outreach was run the same way. You were watching through a one-way window so you could see what was going
Sure.
on for your own, to feel more comfortable that you're leaving your 3-year-old in the presence of a total stranger. And I think really you improvise, just like I was talking about at Pothier with the stalking situation.
Yeah.
We're forced to improvise, and I think other districts are probably doing the same. If there's a window in the door to the classroom that isn't covered by white paper,
Like,
the
yes.
observation could be occurring that way. I heard that for you, Mr. Burke, because
Thank
you did raise
I was
that.
going to add that too.
That's right.
Raise that. And I think that's
right.
really the only way you can do it without a person actually walking in and creating the disruption. There's really no way to avoid it.
You're right.
Mr. Chair,
Any other comments, questions?
may I just ask, is there a way to like virtually do it by any chance? Like we used to do virtual classrooms. Like, is there a way for a parent to maybe virtually watch?
As a parent, I can see a problem with that.
Okay.
You're controlling the camera.
Okay.
I'm seeing what you want me to see.
Okay. Okay.
It's much like the argument of parents that I've been dealing with in the CLAC for 20 years. We all have been dealing with in the CLAC for 20 years. They want cameras in the classroom. And we've explained to them repeatedly that it's not going to solve the problem you think it's going to solve. They want to basically be able to see what's going on in that classroom, all in violation of FERPA. But they also think that there's going to be somebody sitting there monitoring that camera 24/7 so that someone could step in and prevent the fight, stop the bullying. All it would be doing is recording something that you need a subpoena to be able to see anyway.
Okay.
We do not want to go in the possibility also with virtual of a parent sitting at home and a virtual hearing and a virtual observation recording.
Okay.
That's the big risk. We
Okay.
want to be able to see exactly what the
What they're
parent is doing.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Anyone else?
Mr.
Doc-
Chairman,
Yes,
before the committee
Dr.
takes
McGee.
a vote, I would just like to say, I'd like to thank the parent in this particular situation for coming forward and reaching out to us and expressing, a concern that there wasn't a policy specific to the needs
Yes.
of some of our families. So I want to thank that individual who, came to me initially, and I actually invited her to the policy subcommittee meeting. I also want to thank the policy subcommittee, and while I know the committee is soon to vote, but the fact that we do listen, we do listen to families and we do listen to parents, and when they come to us, and while they may not always be happy with the answers, but this was certainly a situation where we listened to a family, a parent, and we're able to make some policy changes in the district.
Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:06 PM. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.